Everywhere we go, people want to know who we are and where we come from. So who are you and where'd you come from?
I'm Lauren McCormick and I come from Kilmore.
Lauren, just to let everyone know that we're on TikTok live right now.
Yeah.
And I probably should tell people that we're on it, but you know what? We'll just leave it that we're there.
Just see what happens.
Yeah, and hello to everyone who was watching on TikTok. So we've had a chat, and there's a very specific reason why I asked you to come on the pod. But before we do that, just tell me a little bit about growing up Kilmore, literally down the road from me. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I had a great childhood, very different to what I think childhoods are now. I just always remember I've been out with friends on the road, not on kind of phones and stuff, and just it was great. Kilmore's a real small community, so I think like everybody knows everyone, and it's just I had a great childhood growing up. So yeah,
it's mad because I said the same to Damien, but we thought, even with the flats, we thought Kilmore was posh.
Yeah.
We did, like we thought, like, you know, because we used to, Natalie, my friend, she used to go over to Bizone's house. Your man's house. I think it was a Shane or Mikey Graham.
It was Mikey Graham.
And so we'd go over, but it was miles away. It was miles away from Mofew. But it was also really posh.
Because you just have Larkin just at the top. It's like next door neighbours to Larkin, so we'll claim it.
So you must have thought Larkin was real posh then, did you?
But that's what I still think now. Larkin is still real posh.
Where'd you go to school?
Scully, primary school.
Oh, yeah.
And then I went to Mercy Beaumont secondary school. Yeah.
And someone else that's here.
Yeah.
Went to Mercy Beaumont. Who was that? Oh God. Jesus, I'm forgetting her name. It's not terrible. Oh my God, she just wanted me to guess. Amy.
Oh, yeah.
Amy went to, and I was saying it's a Desh school now, which is great.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a Desh school.
Way. I didn't know.
Yeah. And again, Mercy Beaumont, as I said before, sorry to repeat myself, was a real posh school. Like I went to tech.
Yeah, no, Mercy Beaumont was like posh.
How was school for you?
Yeah, school was great. Like I was only texting a friend the other day and she was like, I'd love to go back to school, secondary school. It was like a pure laugh just the whole way. It was grand.
You miss it, like when you love like right now, like just to go back to those days 100%. And walk them corridors and meet those teachers. Yeah. And I've met a teacher actually, and like we were mad in school.
Well,
like
that's
mad.
what we were kind of like that as well. Yeah. We were a bit mad in our class, but like when you were in school, you were like, oh, I can't wait for it to end. And stuff. But then when you think back, you're like, I'd love to go back. No worries, just seeing your friends Monday to Friday, just like having a laugh and stuff with them. You'd love to just go back.
What did you do after school?
I went to college in Dunleary. It was senior college Dunleary, and then they changed it to Blackrock. So I studied theatrical and media makeup.
Wow.
Yeah, and then
I went to that college.
Did you? Yeah. So
did beauty. Isn't the senior college? Is it just the lane? Is it that?
Yeah, that little lane. Yeah. So when I was there, that was the last year. It was Dunleary, and then they changed to Blackrock for their education, I think. So my sisters went there. My older sister Leslie studied business, and my other sister Donna studied doing a beautician course there. So I just it's just kind of natural for me to go there, and I absolutely loved it. It was brilliant. I really enjoyed college, and then I had Aaliyah just after I graduated from college, so it was kind of school, college, and then been a mum.
So what was it like when you found out you were pregnant?
Do you know what? I was just at going 18, and it was a scary kind of time because I was so young, and I just remember being so frightened. But I was like, I don't know why I even was frightened, because the second I found out and I went for my scans and stuff, I was immediately just like, oh my God, this is so exciting. Like, I'm growing a human. I just was so excited, and like my family and I was so supportive. I think I was afraid of, oh my God, what my mum think, I'm only out of college and stuff, but my mum was like, this is a blessing, like this is amazing. Like, she was so excited. So I think after seeing her reaction, I was like, oh, I just can't wait to be a mum. And just did you do the pregnancy test on your own, like? Oh my God, I did it.
What was that like? Tell me about that.
I did it with my sister. So I did it with my sister, and I came home and I was like, I think I was in a bit of denial. I was like, there's no way I'm pregnant. Like, no, it's just, you know the way sometimes people do, like, oh, I think I'm pregnant, and then they do a pregnancy test and nothing. But I remember doing it. I drank a pint of water, I chugged it, and I did it, and it came up immediately. You know the way you have to wait for it? Like, before I even set it down, it just came up immediately, and I was like, no, that's wrong. So I was like, I'm going to chug another glass of water, because I bought 2 of them, and it came up straight away, and I was like, oh my God. And my sister was like, oh my God, Lauren. And I was like, what am I going to do? My initial thought was, I'm only out of college, I don't have a job, and I'm bringing a baby into the world. What am I going to do? And I'll never forget, my sister said to me, Lauren, like, sometimes people will say, I'm too young to have this baby, or it's not the right time, I'm not like financially stable, whatever. And she's like, it's the best thing that ever happened to them. And that always just stuck with me, because I always used to think back and be like, she was right. I was so scared and I was so young, but when I look back and when Aaliyah was growing and stuff, I was like, she was so right. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. Even though I was young, it didn't make a difference. Like, do you know what I mean? So.
And then tell me what your pregnancy was like and her birth. What was that like?
Pregnancy for the first, I think, 4 months, I was very sick, like sick every morning. I was literally, I was so skinny and I was just all bump. And then when I got to, I think, like my 6th month, I was grand, and I had a great pregnancy. I loved being pregnant. I really enjoyed it. I had like no kind of complications or anything. She didn't budge. I had to be induced, so that she was like 2 weeks overdue. They were like, she's just too pumpy, she doesn't want to come out. So I just remember going into the hospital on the Wednesday, and she didn't come until Friday night. And there was a bit of a complication. She wasn't hurrying up. The pregnancy was taking a long time, and I remember them saying to me, if you don't progress to 10 centimetres in an hour, we're going to have to do a C-section. And I was like, oh my God, no. I just wanted an easy birth, and kind of, I was like, oh no. So I was like, how am I going to progress to the 10 centimetres in an hour? And I remember the nurses saying, like, let's get you in a gown, because I don't think this is going to happen. The theatre is ready, like, we'll get you ready to wheel you down and stuff. And I remember we were all just saying prayers, lighting candles. I was like, please, just let her come. Just let her hurry up. I think the epidural was wearing off me at this stage. And the nurse checked me and she was like, you're ready, push. And I was like, what? I was like, what's going on? So she was out in a couple of minutes, and it was fine. It was grand. So
you still had the epidural, do you?
Yeah. I don't know if it was wore off at this stage. I remember getting epidural, and I was just like, I fell asleep and stuff. I was just so relaxed then, because I was in labour for a good while, and it was traumatic, as you know.
Yeah, horrific.
Yeah.
And then tell me then, what kind of baby was she, and so on?
Yeah, she was such a good baby. Like, she was so happy, she was always laughing, she was just so good. I remember at the start she was colic, so she was always up crying, and then when she kind of settled down, she was grand, and she brought so much happiness into our lives. Like, she was such a joy. Everyone was so happy with like this new little baby in the house, and she just like the bond was just instant with us. I was like, she is the love of my life. She is the best thing to ever happen to me. Like, I just remember like me being so young, and like my friends and all being like, oh my God, you have a baby. And I was like, I knew this is what I was like born to do. I knew this was like just meant for me. Everything just felt so right, and it was just amazing.
And was she the first grandchild?
No, she wasn't. So she was the 3rd grandchild. And
did you bring her home to, like, so you're in your mum and dad's?
Yeah, she was the 3rd grandchild. So I had me niece and nephew, and then Aaliyah came along, and then me other niece Saoirse came along 9 months after. So Saoirse and Aaliyah were kind of like sisters, because it was only 9 months between them, and them two like were always so close. So, but it was just lovely to have like another baby. Everyone was just so happy with her. Like, it was just, she brought so much happiness into all our lives, and she was always just so good. Like, she was never crying all the time. Do you know what I mean? She was always just like a great baby to have around.
And were you all in your ma's?
I was. It was me and my sister at the time. Yeah, just for a little while, and then I stayed on in my mum's for a couple of years. Yeah.
And then what was it like going on with her? Did she go to school?
So she went to the play school, the little Montessori in Lorcan up the road, and I just remember her being so intelligent. Like, she was really like smart beyond her years. Like, you didn't have to explain things a lot to Aaliyah. You kind of just told her once and she took it in. So she went to the Montessori up the road, and then she went to St John of God's in Artane. And everyone was always like, she's so intelligent, she's just so smart. And I was like, where'd she get that from? She was just so smart. So yeah, she done brilliant in school. Like, I just always remember the teachers and stuff saying like, she's so kind, she's brilliant, she does all her homework and everything, and like never has to be corrected. Like, she's just as great. Like.
And then talk to me then, where did things happen or change for your life, your and Aaliyah's
So
life?
it was just after the lockdown. So it was 2021, and I just remember everything was kind of coming back around. So I was going back to work. Aaliyah's school had only opened, and she was never sick. Like, she was the most healthiest child ever. We were only ever in like the hospital a couple of times, you know, for like, oh, she'd a fever or like she'd a cold and stuff. So she was never sick. She was always so healthy. And I just remember her going back to school, and she was so happy because she hated being like homeschooled in the lockdown. So she was so excited, and I was like, oh, like life is finally coming back to normal. Like, we were all just like cooped up and everything. So I just remember I started noticing, and this is not actually like a normal symptom of like having like a brain tumour, and it was our tickles. That was our first symptom. So I remember like we'd have like a tickle fight or something, like me and Carl would be tickling her, and I just remember one day she was like, I have no tickles anymore. And I was like, you're playing games with me, like, of course you do. So I remember tickling her, and she's like, look, I can keep a straight face. So it became kind of a joke. Oh, you can tickle Aaliyah and she like can keep a straight face. She like doesn't laugh around. And I was like, that's really like kind of strange. But like, I didn't think anything of it. It was just tickled. So then I noticed her eye, her right eye wouldn't fully close sometimes. Now, when she was really tired, I remember at night time when I'd be tucking her in, she'd blink, and this one was kind of slow, and I was like, do you know, I think she's getting like a lazy eye, or she's gonna need glasses or something. So I remember I was like, oh, it's kind of like not a persistent thing, it's kind of only sometimes. So I didn't think much of it either. And then I just remember it was the summertime, it was July, and her eye was really noticeable at this stage. I was like, I'm gonna have to make an appointment with Specsavers. I was like, she probably just needs glasses and stuff. So then her eye wouldn't close at all, and it was becoming really red and bloodshot, and that was because it wasn't closing. There was like, you know, the way your eyes stay like wet to kind of keep dirt out and stuff. So I was like, what's going on? I need to book that appointment. Didn't think like much of it. She wasn't complaining or anything of her eye. It was just me noticing. So I just remember her walking started going. This was only a couple of days before our diagnosis. This wasn't like weeks or months. This was literally all in the week. So I remember her walking was starting to go really slow, and I was like, what? Like, none of this is making sense to me. Like, what is kind of going on? And then the vomiting started, but it wasn't like persistent vomiting all day. It was kind of like she'd eat her breakfast and she'd get sick, and then I'd be like, what? Oh my God, does she have a tummy bug? What's going on? And then she'd be fine, and she'd be back eating during the day and stuff. So was
Carl noticing it, and was your mum and dad noticing?
I was saying it to Carl, and I was like, Aaliyah, I remember texting my sisters and my mum in our group chat, and I was like, I think Aaliyah has a tummy bug or something. Like, she started getting sick. It wasn't like all the symptoms were pieced together, like the eye, the walking, and then the vomiting. They weren't kind of connecting, if you know what I mean. So they were like, oh, just keep an eye on her, like, and I was like, but she's not constantly vomiting like you would with a tummy bug. So I remember me and my sister, this was 2 days before she was diagnosed, we brought her to the beach. It was the hottest week ever. Like, we were like, we're both not on work, let's bring the kids to the beach. And I remember walking down the beach, and she was so slow, and I was just looking at her, and I was like, Leslie, what's up with her? Like, there's something up with her. She's just really tired this week. She's like, I don't know what it is. And I just remember her at the beach, like, she didn't want to play in the water or anything. She just wanted to kind of sit with me on the sand. And I was like, just chill out. You seem a bit tired. Like, let's just like chill together and stuff. So I remember then it was the Saturday, and she'd been vomiting all morning, and I said, we need to bring her to the doctor. Something's like not right. Let's just bring her to the doctor, see what it is. But like, I never thought it was going to be what it was. So we brought her to the D-Doc on the Saturday, and I told the doctor like everything. I said, listen, like, there's some weird symptoms. I said, other than the vomiting, and her eyes been really bloodshot. I said, like, her walking is a bit off balance as well, and she's very like kind of tired. And the doctor looked at her, and she told me she had conjunctivitis, and that the vomiting was down to the heat wave. So she said, don't worry about it, she should be fine. There's a prescription for an antibiotic gel, just keep an eye on her. And I remember leaving, and I was like, feel a bit weird. Like, I knew there wasn't quite something right. I was like, okay, well, she's the doctor, she knows, let's just see how she is. So I went into work late that day, and Carl was off work, and I was like, should I not go in? Like, maybe I should stay around. And he's like, no, like, I'm chilling with her. Like, you go into work, she'll be fine. Like, if there's that, and I'll ring you. So all day I just had this weird like feeling in my stomach. I was like, is she okay? I was constantly texting Carl, and he's like, we're at having a water fight out the back, she's grand. And then like a couple of hours went by, and obviously I was working, I wasn't looking at my phone, and he texted me, and he said, we need to get her to Temple Street. And he sent me a video of her, and I just remember I was like, what? He sent me this video of it. He's like, she wanted to watch a movie, so they were chilling on the sofa, and she just was like kind of swaying, and she was like watching the telly, but she just did not look well at all. She was like white, and I just got this gut feeling. I was like, something is seriously wrong. And he said, let's get her to Temple Street. So we met and we went to Temple Street, and you know yourself, Temple Street is always packed, like it's always busy. I was like, we're going to be here all night. I don't even care, I just want her sorted. So I walked into Temple Street. There was only one mum there with our son, and it was just me and her, and I was like, what is going on? Like, so the nurse came out. I literally only sat down on the chair, and she called Aaliyah, and I was kind of like, what's going on? I was laughing, saying to her like, God, there's no one here. Like, and she's like, oh, nobody's sick on a hot day. So I was like, thank God we're getting through. So she's like, what's going on? I explained to her, and I said, now we were at the doctor this morning, but I said, she's had to getting worse from then. I said, she's very lethargic, she's constantly vomiting, and she's just not herself. She's not usually like this. She's usually healthy and perked up and usually really bubbly and stuff. And the nurse literally just looked at her and said, can you stand up for me, Aaliyah? And Aaliyah stood up and she fell on the ground. And I was like, do you see what I mean? And I was kind of happy that happened, because I was like, instead of me fighting and telling her all these symptoms, she's just seeing it with her own eyes. Aaliyah couldn't stand up. So she literally just felt her heart rate on her wrist, and she was looking at her pocket watch, and she was looking at it for a long time, and I was like, what is going on? And she just looked at me, and I knew the look she gave me, something wasn't right. And I said to her, is everything okay? She goes, just give me a second. So she timed her pulse again, and she was looking at the big clock, and she just looked at me and goes, we need to get her through straight away. Like, usually they send you back out and you have to wait and stuff. So we were literally just rushed through, and because of COVID, Carl wasn't allowed to come in with me. So it was me on my own with Aaliyah. He had to wait out in the car. So I'm trying to update him. I'm like, I'm not sure what's going on. We're about to get him put through straight away. So I just remember they lied her on the bed and had all these heart monitors on her. And I never heard of these before. I didn't know what they were. They're the ECG monitors. And my sister works in Birmingham. So I sent her a picture of Aaliyah, and I said, what is going on? Nobody's telling me anything. She was like, Lauren, that's for your heart. And I was like, what? So she said to me, listen, Aaliyah's heart rate is very low. We're just going to monitor it on the heart rate, and we need to do bloods and like a urine sample. So I'm like, okay, no problem at all. Leah never had a blood sample in her life, so she was so upset. And the bloods came back absolutely fine. Nothing came up in the bloods, nothing came up in the urine. So they were kind of like, we don't know what's going on. So I was sitting there for a while, and the doctor came around to me, and he was like, so you're telling me like last week she was healthy, and then just these last 3-4 days, just these kind of symptoms have gotten worse? And I said, yeah. He said, I don't really know what it is. He said, like, I might just send you home. It could be just like a viral tummy bug. And I was like, no. I was like, I'm not going anywhere. I said, I need to stay here. I said, I don't mind if I'm here all night. I don't mind sleeping on a chair. I was like, if I go home, I'm going to be worried about her. There's something not right. I was like, look at her. She's so lethargic. This is not her. And he was like, right, okay, just bear with me for a few minutes. So he comes back and he's like, you said she's off balance. And I said, yeah. He said, okay, let me check her ear. Sometimes with earaches, kids get off balance. So I'm there, oh, maybe it's just something like that. Maybe it's just an earache. Checks her ears, no, everything's fine. So he asked her to walk in a straight line. She couldn't do it. He said, can you put one foot in front of the other? And she couldn't do it. She fell over. And I was like to him, doctor, like, can you see that? Like, there's something really wrong. And he said, yeah, that's like not right. So then he says to me, is there a chance she could have a concussion? Has she banged her head in the last few days or anything, or do it last week? And I was like, oh my God, I'm after been in and out of work. Like, she was up in her nannies. What if she was out the back and fell off the swing? And like, what if it was something so simple and we didn't know? So I'm panicking, and I was like, I don't know, like, I really don't know. So it's like, right, I just want to do one thing just to rule out something. And I said, okay. And he said, I'm going to do a CT scan. So I was like, right, okay. And he said, you're going to be here all night. So at this stage, it was about 10 o'clock. He said, you're going to be here all night. So if you want, like, have you got a partner with you? And I said, yeah. He said, if you want to get her some pyjamas or like a little blanket, teddies and stuff. And I said, right, okay. So Carl flew home, grabbed a load of stuff. I literally hadn't eaten it all that day. So I was like, grab me a McDonald's or just something I can eat it. Like, won't be able to function if I don't have it. And he came back, brought all the stuff in. And I was like, he said, we're going to be here all night. So I brought Aaliyah down for our CT scan, and it was so quick. She was literally just in and out. And we went back, and I said, Aaliyah, we're going to have a sleepover here in the hospital. And she was like, oh, Mommy, I really want to just go home. And I was like, listen, I'm taking the day off tomorrow. We'll go Smith's. Wherever you want to go, I'll bring you to Tato Park. Whatever you want to do, we'll do.
How old is she living?
So Aaliyah was 6 when she was diagnosed. So all she wanted to do was go home. She's like, why am I in this stupid hospital? I don't want to be here. I just want to go home and stuff. And I said, listen, we just want to make sure you're fine. We just need to figure out what's wrong with you, and then we'll get home. It's me still not realising what's happening. So I have all our pyjamas, everything, blanket, and I'm like, Carl, you may as well go home. There's no point in you sitting out in the car all night. And he's like, no, I really don't want to. I'm worried. And I said, no, just, we're going to be here all night. Probably won't have results till 9 o'clock the next morning. That's what he told me. So when Carl was just about to go, the doctor came round and said, I just seen all these nurses kind of behind the curtain, and he said, did you tell your partner to go home? And I said, yeah. I said, you told us we'd be here all night. Said, can you tell him to come in? And I was like, what? And he goes, we just want your partner here with you while we're telling you what our findings. So I'm thinking the worst. I'm just like, I know what's going on. So I ring Carl and I'm like, don't go home yet. You need to come in. I know something's wrong, Carl. You need to come in. They're going to tell us. So there's like a little door between like where we were and the patients, and you have to kind of buzz through. So I'm waiting there, and it felt like eternity. I was just standing there and everything's racing through my mind. So I buzzed Carl in and I'm like, Carl, something's wrong. Something's really wrong. And I must have been talking like 90 miles an hour, because he just grabbed me and he was like, Lauren, we don't know what it is yet, so don't overthink it and don't like panic. Let's just see what the doctors say. So I'm like, right, okay, I'm trying to gather myself. And I just remember looking at Aaliyah in the bed, and it just clicked in my mind what it was. And I remember I was like, oh my God, I know what they're about to say. So this lovely nurse was like, Aaliyah was asleep at the time. She said, I'm going to stay with Aaliyah while you talk to the doctors. And I said, okay. So the doctor sat us down, and I just felt so sick, that anxiety in my stomach, everything. And he's like, okay, I don't have great news. And I said, okay. And he said, we're after finding a shadow. And I'm like, what's a shadow? I couldn't even look at him. I was like, Carl, will you please ask him what he's talking about? Just explain it. Like, so Carl, I looked at Carl, and Carl was in floods of tears. So it clicked in my head. He knows something that I don't. So he said to the doctor, and what do you think the shadow is? And he said, I'm sorry, but we believe your daughter has a brain tumour. And I just grabbed my phone and I just ran out the hospital, through the corridor, through, like, everyone's like outside on phones and stuff, and I just ran out, and I was just like, what is going on? I couldn't even put 2 and 2 together. It was like, my daughter has a brain tumour. Like, no, you must have mixed up our chart. Maybe they have it wrong, maybe it's a mistake. And I just remember freaking out. I rang my mum and I told her. Just hearing my mum's reaction made it more real for me. I couldn't really puzzle. I was like, I need to say it out loud, because I can't just leave it in my head. So when I said it out loud, I was like, oh my God. So I just remember I was like, I need to go back in. So I just wiped.
What did your mum say?
I just remember saying, no, Aaliyah, this is not fair. And my mum and dad just crying. And I just was like, I need to go. I couldn't even chat. I just remember I was just crying in floods of tears, like coughing, just crying, and everyone just around me looking, and I didn't even care. I was like, they don't know my daughter's just been diagnosed with a brain tumour. Like, no one knows what's going on. So I just remember I was like, I need to go back into her. I need to be strong for her. She must be so scared. She doesn't know what's going on. So I just wiped my tears and I ran back in, and I just had a smile on my face. I just had to pretend. Like, Aaliyah was awake when I went back in, and Carl was beside her and all the nurses, and I was like, hey babe, I was like, I'm back. You okay? And she's like, yeah, Mommy, I'm just really tired. And I was like, don't worry, we're going upstairs to bed now. And I just had to pretend like everything was okay, because if she had got a glimpse of me, I knew she would have been afraid. So we were brought up to St. Gabriel's ward, and it was so dark at this stage. Everyone on the ward was asleep, and I was like, what is going on? Like, how was I in work a couple of hours ago, and now my daughter's diagnosed with a brain tumour? And at this stage, Aaliyah, they were checking our vitals every 15 minutes. Like, the nurses were coming in, checking our heart rate, checking our oxygen levels, just checking everything, because the symptoms that she was having, it was causing so much pressure in her brain, and it was so dangerous. She could have died within them hours if the brain tumour had have pressed on all our vital nerves. So I just was sitting there and I was like, what is going on? I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And the next morning they were like, we need to run loads of tests. We need to do MRIs. We need to do hearing tests. We needed to bring her to the eye doctor and do eye tests, everything. And I was like, right, okay. So I brought her down to the MRI, and the doctor said, usually we sedate children this young, but you think she'd be able to stay still for it? Because if you've ever seen an MRI, you have to stay completely still. It's this big, huge machine, and it's so loud. So I'd never been in like one before, and I said, can we just see how she is? I don't really want to sedate her. Like, can we just see? I said, if I'm with her, she'd be fine. So they said we can stick a movie on for her. So she was able to watch a little movie through the MRI machine, and she stayed still for 45 minutes.
Oh, wow.
I remember I must have rubbed the skin off her leg. I just kept rubbing her leg, and I remember just sitting there and oh my God, my anxiety was just through the roof. Like, everything was just going through my head. I'm trying to keep her calm. They gave me these noise cancelling headphones. It was so loud, but it was still, I could still hear it through the noise cancelling headphones. It was so scary, because I was like, she hasn't a clue what's going on, but I know everything that's happened. So
how did you explain to her that she was, because an MRI is so scary
so
as an
scary.
adult. It's so scary. It's the noise, it's all of that, and it's the claustrophobic.
It's claustrophobic, So
how did you explain it to her that she was doing that?
So thankfully I had a doctor with me, because I was like, what will I tell her? And they said, they just sat down and said, Lee, we need to put you in this kind of little tunnel and you can watch a movie. They kind of like kept emphasising on the movie, because they were like, you'll have earphones in, you can pick all these movies out, and we've a little screen and you can watch it. And she was like, okay. And they said, we just need to take pictures of your brain. And she was like, all right. She didn't have a clue what it was, but she was like, okay, whatever, let's just do it, let's get it over with. So she was grand. I couldn't believe, they were like, we've never seen a child at 6 years of age stand still for 45 minutes. And she was like, she was just lying there, and she's like, I have to pee. And they were like, okay, we'll get you out now, we're done. So we had to wait a couple of days for them results. And it was just, when we were in the hospital, we were just trying to make it as fun as we could. Like, she wouldn't have known Anne was wrong because of just what we were like with her. Do you know what I mean? We were trying to just make everything as positive as we could, even though everything was going on. Like, they had play therapists doing things with her and stuff. So she was kind of like, why am I still here? What's going on? But we couldn't tell her Anne because we didn't know yet. So
was it just you and Carl, or did they allow anyone else to come in?
They allowed Carl in. They were very strict with COVID. Everyone else on the ward that was with me, everyone else's child had brain tumours. They were only allowed one parent, but because they knew how serious Aaliyah's case was, I didn't at the time. They were like, we'll let him in during the day, but at night time, only Mammy's allowed to stay. And I was like, that's grand. I just needed his support during the day. And I remember there was a little boy directly across from us, and like, we were chatting to the other parents and stuff. They were asking like, how's your daughter and stuff. And they were like, we're from down the country, our son has a brain tumour. And I was like, so does mine. And she was like, we're absolutely frightened. But he looked so well. He didn't look like Aaliyah. Like, Aaliyah was vomiting and stuff, and she was just really frail and sickly. And like, they'd get up and they'd go into town, and they'd come back at night time and stuff, and they'd be out all day. And I remember they got their results. They were there before us, and the doctor said, we made a mistake. Your son doesn't have a brain tumour. He has a birthmark on his brain. And I just was like, oh my God, maybe that's what's wrong with Aaliyah. And I remember the parents being like, we're going to sue. You put us through extreme stress, everything. And I just remember thinking in my head, oh my God, if they say that to us, I'll just thank them, and I'll go home and I'll be so grateful. And they were going ballistic, and I was like, I wish that's Aaliyah. I hope that's what they say to us. So I kept thinking in my head, they must have a mistake. Like, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's not what it is. So they had the results for the MRI then a couple of days later, and they called us down to this like meeting room, and they had our MRI up on the screen, and I could see the tumour straight away. I didn't need, like, the brain in an MRI is so complex, but I could see the tumour straight away. And he said, okay, we're after finding a brain tumour in the pons. So it's in the brainstem, which is the most like crucial part of the brain. That's where your heart rate is, your breathing, all your most important vitals are in the brainstem. So he said there's two things. He said, A, it could be benign and she could live with this, like, it's just a low grade, it's not cancerous. He said, and this is what I'm hoping, because her symptom history was so short. It wasn't months and it wasn't weeks, it was literally the week. So he said, we're hopeful that'll be that. And I said, and what's B, what's the plan B? And he said, that's if it's malignant, if it's cancerous and it's highly aggressive. But he said, we won't talk about that because we're going to focus on plan A. So I'm there, okay, these are all the professionals say no. So he said, what we're going to have to do on Friday is a biopsy. And I was like, okay. And we said, have you done many of these? And he said, biopsies, thousands, this once or twice. And I was like, what? And he said, this is an extremely rare brain tumour. He said, we only see this in Ireland in 2 or 3 children a year. He said, we don't know much about it. We don't know what causes it. there's no cure, and if it's inoperable, because usually with brain tumours, if it's like glioblastoma or if it's in a different part of the brain, you can take it out and stuff and get chemotherapy and radiation. Some people can live a long life after that, but he said with this, it's deadly. It's known as the worst cancer in existence.
Where is it? Like, is it right in?
So where it is, if you think of your spine, right on top of the spinal cord, right at the base of the skull, it's in the middle. So there's no way to get at it. If you did get at the brain stem, you'd completely damage it and you'd be brain dead. So that's why they can't go near it. And he said this biopsy is extremely risky, but it's essential. So I was like, well, I don't really feel like I have a choice. Like, what? I don't feel like I can say no. So he said, listen, she's in the best hands. Like, I'm really experienced and stuff, and we have an amazing team of doctors. Let's try and keep positive. So I just was like, what's going on? I couldn't even, we were just in fight or flight mode. Like, we were just trying to get through the day, just trying to survive, trying to be positive for Aaliyah. I didn't even know what was kind of going on. So the biopsy day came, and I remember I had to sign this form, and they were kind of like, the doctor kind of just wanted me to sign it. And I was like, can I just read it? Like, and he's like, okay, well, you need to hurry. And I was like, right, okay. So I read it, and I was like, oh my God, what am I putting her through? It was like all the complications that can happen. It was like death was the number one. It was like, where we're doing the biopsy, she could die on the table. The chances of a seizure and a brain bleed are extremely high. And I was like, that they were like, it sounds like something that's a possibility, so we need to just prepare you. We'll have to do a full craniotomy, like completely open up her head if this happens. We have to get to the bleed and stuff. And I was like, right, okay. So we were just praying like non-stop. I don't know how many candles were lit, how many prayers were said. And I remember that day the nurses said, the thing that we advise is for you to not stay in the hospital. Like, don't sit around, and it just makes it worse. So she said, why don't you go home, like have a shower, get a change of clothes and stuff, and then come back in. She'd be about 4 or 5 hours. So I said, okay. And I remember we drove out. I hadn't been out of the hospital in a week, and I remember leaving the hospital thinking like life feels so weird. And we drove home, and a white butterfly followed us, I'm not joking, like in front of the car the whole way home. And I was like, usually you don't see butterflies in the middle of town, like up where Temple Street is. And I just felt so hopeful. When I seen the butterfly, I was like, I have a good feeling everything's going to be fine with this biopsy. So we headed back in, and they were like, she's finished.
Can I ask you, just when you get home, who's there? What do you want to talk to them? Do you not want to talk to them?
Yeah.
What's going through your mind?
So like my whole family was just there trying to be supportive, but I couldn't make sense of what was going on in my mind, so I couldn't even think of saying it out loud. So I mean, I'm like, I have to just get through this for Aaliyah. I don't know what's going on, but I just couldn't even puzzle it together. It was just such a confusing situation. And everyone's just like, let's just pray, let's be hopeful, let's not think ahead, and let's try and take it like minute by minute and stuff. So
did they know how serious it was?
No, none of us did. None of us knew how serious it was. Even when the doctors were explaining it, like you always hear of like cancer and they're like, there's nothing we can do, and then people living for years and stuff. So I remember my mum just being like, Lauren, like people live with tumours for years, like let's not take what the doctors are saying for gospel. Some people get radiation, chemo, and they can live for a long time, but I didn't know how serious this was until I found a group on Facebook, because I was like, do you know what, there's groups for everything on Facebook. Let me look up childhood brain tumours, let me look up childhood cancer. And at this stage we didn't even know what the name of it was. We just knew she had a brain tumour in her pons. We didn't know it was DIPG. So I wrote into this group and I asked,
when did you do that? I
done that literally when we got home from the hospital. I was like, I need to figure out what's going on, because the doctors are just telling me they don't know much about this, and there has to be more information somewhere else. So I wrote in to one of these groups and I said, my daughter's 6, she's just been diagnosed with a brain tumour in the pons.
Is it PONDS, like a pond?
Yeah, like the PONS, so the pons. So I was like, we have no idea about what's going on. And hundreds of people text me back and said, go into this group, there's specific groups for that tumour. You came to the right place, like there's loads of help. And then I found a DIPG group and went into it. I wrote in the same message and they were all like, yeah, you're in the right place. And I got so much information from, these were people all around the world. It was mostly kind of America because the population over there is a lot bigger. There was only a couple of people from like England and Europe and stuff. I think I was the only Irish person in it. I was like, we're from Ireland, and all these people were like, you need to do this, this is what it is. And some people were like, yeah, your daughter's going to die soon. Like, this diagnosis, there's no help. Some people were more kind of like...
When you read that, how did you feel?
I remember sobbing. I was like, they were being real blunt about it. Some people were going around about it in a nice way, being like, there's no cure. Like, there's nothing we can do. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, what do they mean my daughter's going to die? Like, every person's individual and every cancer diagnosis is individual. So what happens for my child is not going to happen for another. And that's what I learned as well. Like, every child is individual, and my story isn't the same as that other child's story. So for some, I'd never say that to someone. Like, I'm still in that group now, and I help a lot of people in it, but I would never say your child's going to die soon, because I don't know that. They could live for a couple of years, they could live for a long time, I don't know. So when people are saying that, I was like, I'm not even tuning into that. I was like, I'm just going to take it on the shoulder. But in the back of my mind, it was kind of playing like that kind of right. Do you know what I mean? So, but yeah, I learned a lot of information from them groups. If I hadn't have found them, we would have been in the dark completely, and I would have not known anything. So when we got back to the hospital, then I was just waiting for them to say there was a brain bleed, she had a seizure, something happened. And the other symptoms, or the other things that could happen is she could have like full left side paralysis, so she wouldn't be able to move like one side of her body, or she might not be able to speak again. It might have ruined all the nerves in her brain. So I was just waiting for one of them things to happen. And I remember I ran into the room, and she just looked so peaceful. And she just opened her eyes, and I was like, Aaliyah, we're back, are you okay? And she just stuck her thumb up and was like, I'm fine, and went back to sleep. So I was like, she's fine. That's all I needed to know. And the doctor came in and confirmed. He said everything went perfect. He said everything went so well. We actually finished it quicker than we thought, and she should be fine. And I was like, right, okay. So we had to wait, obviously, then for the results of the biopsy to tell us whether it was benign or cancerous, and then we would find out what the treatment plan was after that. So I remember Aaliyah said to me, Mammy, I had a dream that we went home on Sunday, and we went to Nanny's and we got Sunday dinner, and like, she loved going. My mum's on a Sunday, Mum always has a Sunday dinner ready, and I was just thinking, no, we're going to be here for probably weeks. And I was like, Aaliyah, that was a lovely dream. I was like, but I don't know if we're going to get out on Sunday. I think we're going to be here for another while. And in comes the doctor, and he was like, it was Sunday, and he said, do you want to go home? And I was like, my face dropped. I was like, what? He said, she looks fine, there's no point in her sitting around the hospital waiting for these results. Go home and get some rest and get back to a bit of normality and stuff. So I was just over the moon.
Did that fuck with your head?
Yeah, because it gave me a bit of hope that, oh, like, something's going right. Like, we're getting sent home a little bit early, and he's saying she looks fine. And I was like, something's like happening. They said biopsy went great. Like, maybe she's going to be fine. So when we went home, then I was so worried about them results. And I was like, I just don't have a good feeling. I don't have a good feeling that they're going to be good news. I don't think it's going to be that plan A that we talked about where it was benign. And everyone was like, be positive, don't think about it, like, you don't know what's going to happen. But in the back of my mind, I was like, I know what the results are going to be.
Did she get her Sunday dinner?
She got her Sunday dinner. Nanny had it made for her. Yeah. I was like, Mum, we're coming home. And she was like, the dinner is on. So I was like, grand. So she was delighted about getting home. She just wanted her own bed. She wanted a bit of normality. So we were just delighted. And they rang me early about the results, and I knew that wasn't a good sign. They rang and said, can you come in a bit earlier than we were supposed to schedule? And I said, okay. So it was a couple of days beforehand, and we went in, and they said Aaliyah can stay with the play therapist Julie. Like, she's loads of stuff set up for her to play with while we're giving you the results. We don't want her in the room. And I said, okay, that's no problem. So Aaliyah was delighted. She's like, I'm going down to play, we're going to make slime and stuff. So she was oblivious to anything that was going on. And I just remember they left us waiting like over 2 hours. Me and Carol was just sitting there, and I was like pacing up and down. I was like, I'm gonna get sick. I was like, I feel so nauseous. I couldn't eat, obviously, but I was like, I feel like I'm gonna get sick. I'm gonna have a panic attack. I don't know what's going on. So they left us waiting ages, and finally they came, and we were in this like boardroom. And I just remember I was like shaking, and Carl's like, what's your gut feeling saying? I was like, it's not good. I know it's not, Carl. And we were just sitting there, and I looked at him, and he was like, he's a real kind of jolly man. He's like, hello. And I'm like, hey. And he was like, okay, so it's not good news. It's not what we wanted, and it's not what we hoped for. We found out that Alia has a high grade 4 malignant brain tumour, and we're going to bring it into the next room for a treatment plan. And I was like, what? So I couldn't even stand. Carol had to help me up out of a chair. Like I had pins and needles everywhere. I was like, what's going on? So in my mind, I was like, oh, chemo and radiation. I was like, people get chemo and radiation all the time and tumours disappear. They live a long life. So in my mind, I was like, I can deal with that. We'll get her through that. That'll be fine. So we go into a different room and there's 2 doctors there. And it was the radiologist and the oncologist. So one was for cancer and one was for radiation. And they just had like such a look on their face that like nothing's right. So I'm sitting there and they're chatting, they're telling me about the process and stuff. So I'm kind of like, no, wait, hold on, nothing's making sense. And I was like, can we just pause for a second? And she was like, yeah. And I said, me and the neurosurgeon spoke about plan A and a plan B. And plan A was that it was going to be benign and that she could live with it. So I'm thinking maybe the cancer or maybe the chemotherapy and the radiation is in the plan A. And I was like, but we spoke about plan B and we didn't want to speak about it. Is this plan B? And she was like, yes, this is plan B. This brain tumour cannot be removed. Radiation's only to keep it at bay and it's going to just keep growing back. And the chemotherapy, there's less than a 10% chance that it's going to work. And that's when I freaked out. That's when like everything, the ball dropped, and that's when I knew what was going on. I just remember screaming, crying. Like I just was like, poor Aaliyah, like she has this brain tumour. She's 6 years of age. How is this happening to her? I was like, I wish it was just me. I wish, why not me? I was 25. I was like, why? I lived like a little bit of my life. I wish it was me instead. I wish she could just go ahead and live her life healthy, and I'd take it, like 100%. I'd take it away from her if I could. And they just spoke about treatment plan, and it wasn't even, I don't even remember what they said. It wasn't registering. It was going in one ear and out the other. And then we went over to Aaliyah then, and we just had to do that again, put on a brave face, smiled and everything, and just take her home and be like, our life is about to change now after this day. We're going to have to prepare for cancer treatments. It's going to get ugly, it's going to be horrendous, but I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to have to, like. So that was just, everything was just go from then. It was like everything was just fast paced. There was no like minute of pause. It was doctors constantly ringing me like writing everything down on calendars, her medication and stuff. Like she was on these steroids and anti-sickness. She's on 3 different anti-sickness tablets, and she was on this steroid called dexamethasone. And if anyone's child is on it, it's a horrible steroid. It takes down the inflammation in the brain, and it takes the pressure off, because the tumour, there's no room for a tumour in the brain. It's pushing on all the nerves. So this steroid takes down all that inflammation and eases the symptoms. But what they never told me was the symptoms that came with that steroid. So when we brought Aaliyah home, she had such a big appetite. And I was like, that's weird, because she wasn't eating like literally last week or the week before. She was vomiting, and now she has such a big appetite. And Aaliyah was always kind of like a picky eater. She was always real thin and built, so she would never eat like much. So I was like, this is like unusual for her. And I was saying to the doctor, like, she's non-stop eating, and like it's constant. Like she was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning crying, saying, "Mommy, I'm hungry." And I was like, you couldn't be hungry. She was eating like a big huge dinner and been like, "Mommy, I'm not full." And I was like, this is like not Aaliyah. So they said, the side effect is extreme weight gain and extreme hunger, mood swings, like many things that came with it. But I didn't realise how much it balloons them out. Aaliyah was unrecognisable on them steroids, and they are highly addictive. So to get Aaliyah off them, you have to wean her off them. And every time we tried to wean her down off them, she'd get sick. And they'd say, we need to go back up a dose. And we were back up a dose. And then it was all starting again, the eating, everything. And we could never wean her off them for a week. So Aaliyah went from this tiny little petite little 6-year-old to this 6-year-old with like these big huge cheeks, weight gain, and she knew that she was looking different, and it was upsetting her. She was like, "Mommy, how come I look so different? How did I go from this to that?" And I couldn't even understand it. So how could a 6-year-old, do you know what I mean? But they never told me the side effects. I kind of had to learn it all on my own. And in them groups, they were like, this is what happens, and when they come off the steroids, the weight kind of goes. But once they're on the steroids, and it's not even like, a little bit of weight, it's uncomfortable for the child. It's like severe. So it was just so much with the medication, everything. It was so overwhelming. You're just exhausted, and the worry of your child has cancer on top of everything else. It was just so difficult.
Where's friends and family? It takes up your tea.
Yeah, I'm like, I need it.
I know, we get a glass of water now. Where's friends and family? Where's Carl? Are you at home? What's going on?
Yeah, so we're at home and everyone's just been so supportive. Everyone, like, no one knows what
Probably
to
get
do.
a glass of water, sorry. Thanks.
We don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. How are they meant to make this situation better? People don't know what to say, but everyone was just trying to do everything they could. They were getting gifts for Aaliyah. They were bringing us food vouchers. They were getting us meals and stuff, just trying to get us through the day. And they didn't know the extent of what it was. We still didn't know the extent of what it was. I was like, right, she has cancer, but she's going to get through it. That's what I had to keep telling myself. If I had fully let myself know she's going to die in less than a year, I wouldn't have been able to get through the day. I had to kind of stay in that denial of, no, we're going to get through it and she's going to be okay, because it was the only kind of thing that got me through, you know.
Take your time. Yeah. And then, like, do you go back to hospital and does she stay there, or do you stay at home? Or?
No, we got to stay at home. So she was doing quite well. It was, if she was vomiting a lot, we had to bring her in, or if we knew there was just something up. Like, I was so frightened. I was like, what symptoms do I have to look out for? Like, what are the symptoms with a brain tumour? And thankfully she never suffered with headaches. That's like a number one symptom with tumours, is a headache, and she never complained of them. It was more the vomiting, and it was very bad in the morning time. It was very extreme. When you first wake up, that's when the vomiting is worse.
That's, to me, no, I know.
Yeah.
But to say, go home and deal with that, that's insane to me.
Know.
Would you have rather been in hospital with her?
Sometimes, yeah, because I'd feel safe in the hospital, because they know what they're doing. I haven't a clue, and I'm like, it's all on us to look at the symptoms, and if she's sick enough, we have to get her into hospital and stuff. So sometimes I'd be like, I'd rather just be in the hospital. Or when we did have to go into Temple Street and come in with her, I'd be like, oh, relief. Like, they know what they're doing. They can check her heart rate, her pulse, oxygen levels, and they know what's up. Whereas I don't. I'm not a medical professional. I haven't a clue. Well, we had to learn all this overnight, like all the names of the medications, so I couldn't even pronounce them, couldn't even read them. And then overnight you're nearly like a trained doctor, and then you kind of just get used to it. Like, I'd be ringing the nurse and I'd know what to say. I'd know what to, like, this, she's this symptom, she's that symptom, she's on this amount of prescription medication, and then I'd kind of just had to learn it. So we'd no choice. We just had to deal with it, and we had to learn, like, for Aaliyah. Do you know what I mean? But when I say my story, it doesn't sound crazy to me, but I know you listening to me, it's like, how did she do that? But we just had to keep going. That was it. Like, we couldn't do it. We couldn't go around it. We had to just go through it.
And then when do you start chemo, and what happens then? So
we started radiation first, because there's no chemotherapy for this brain tumour. And I kept asking about the chemotherapy because I was so intrigued, like, about it. I know what chemo is. I've seen it firsthand, so I was worried thoroughly. And they said, no, this chemo is different. Let's not talk about it yet, because we're not going to do that chemo until October. And I said, okay. So radiation came first, and we went in, and she was in radiation every single day for 14 days. So they said we sedate the children for radiation. They wouldn't be able to stay awake for this. So every single day for 14 days, she had to pick either mommy or daddy to bring her down. And I had to hold her like a baby in my arms and give her a gas mask. And she absolutely hated it. She was petrified. This room was so big and scary. There was this big, huge table she had to lie on. There was a big, huge monitor over it. And she's like, mommy, please, I don't want to do it. And to hear her so upset was like soul destroying for me. Her saying, I don't want to do this, but I'm like, you have to do it. We have to get better. And she didn't understand at all. So every day she had to do the gas mask, and she kind of learned, like, right, if I don't breathe it in, I won't get the gas.
Oh my god!
So she used to march in. She was such a soft soul, but she had that real sassy side to her. So she'd march in, and she'd be like, I'm not doing the gas today, and she'd hold her nose, and I'd be like, sorry everybody, no, she will do it, don't worry and stuff. And they're like, Lauren, we're on a time scale, there's other kids we have to do, like, let's get her in. And I'm like, okay, let me just try and talk to her.
Do you ever want to say to them, fuck off and give me a fucking second?
Many times, I swear. It's like they don't realise what you're dealing with sometimes. So I literally, sometimes they'd be like wanting to give her the gas mask, and Aaliyah was more comfortable if I gave it to her. So every day we used to go in, I used to get it, and they could change the flavour of it. So they were like, do you want strawberry today, do you want watermelon? And she'd be like, I want strawberry. So they were trying to make it fun for her, if that was even possible. So I had to literally hold her in my arms, sit her on my lap, give her the gas mask every day, and watch her eyes just roll back, and them just taking her lifeless body and throwing her up onto this table and bolting her head with this radiation mask to the table. So every single day, that was just...
How was that?
That was exhausting for us, having to watch her and do that every single day for 14 days. It was just... I can't even explain it. It was just, it's kind of a blur to me now, because we were just running on adrenaline getting through it. But every day we had to wait for hours for her to wake up from the anaesthetic, and then they said she can't leave until she eats breakfast. So we had to wait around, and sometimes she wouldn't want the food, she just wanted to go home. So we were there for hours, and then she'd get home, and the radiation side effects is like vomiting, fatigue, everything that came with that. So that was just heartbreaking to see her going through that. I was like, I can't believe her hair. And then she lost all her hair at the very back from the radiation, and that was devastating for her, because she was such a girly girl. Like, she loved her hair, she loved curling it, straightening, just styling it. So I had to explain to her that she was going to lose some of her hair, and she was like, why? And I said, it's just the way the treatment goes. I said it in a roundabout way, like a child-friendly way for her. But she was just so kind of angry about it. She'd question me, like, why did I get sick? How come God made me sick? How come I was able to do cartwheels and I was in swimming lessons a couple of months ago, and now I can't do any of that? And like, what do you say to your child when she asks you these questions? I don't have the answers. I don't know. Some people get sick, like, do you know what I mean? So that, as a mum, that was heartbreaking for me, having to watch her go through all that and just be so upset about her hair. She was so insecure about it, and like, I tried to, instead of hiding it, I wanted to kind of let her know that it was okay. Like, I was only short of texting me hairdresser and saying, I'll shave the back of my head as well, like, and she was like, no, I don't want you to shave your hair, mummy, I love your hair. And I was like, oh, she's so innocent. So I kind of wanted her to embrace it, rather than let's put it in hairbands, let's keep your hair down. And she did. She went to school every single day, and no problem to her. Like, there was days where we couldn't hide it, and I would tell her, listen, just tell the kids you're getting treatment and your hair fell out, but it's going to grow back, and when it grows back, it'll grow real long and stuff. So she kind of got used to it, and she'd be talking about herself. She's like, I am in treatment and this and that. And I remember I was with a play therapist, and I said to her, how am I going to tell her that she's a brain tumour? And they had me these books, and they said, go home and read this to her. So I just grabbed the books and I put them in the car, like, and when I went home and I looked at them, I was like, oh my God, these are outdated, from like the 90s. It was like, you have cancer, and a little cartoon girl with no hair, and it was like, this is what's going to happen, like the normal standard chemotherapy that we all know. And I was like, that's not going to happen to her, so why they give me these books to tell her? So I worked with somebody else in the radiation department, and she was brilliant. She said to me, sit her down and tell her, don't say she's cancer, and don't say she has it. Like, she's going to hear the word tumour, but she doesn't know what it is. We know what it is, and that's scary for us. Just tell her she has a bump in her brain that's not supposed to be there, and it's making her feel sick, and that's why our walking was a bit funny, and we have to do this treatment now to try and get the bump away and get it smaller. So I told her, and she was just like, okay. That was it. Like, kids are so resilient. They're just, you think they're going to act differently, but she just took the information in. She was like, okay. So that was just how I went around it, like, and she just took it, and she was so amazing with everything, all the treatments and all. She was just like, everything she had to go through. She didn't want to do radiation, she didn't want to go to hospital, she hated all them appointments, but she did it, and she was just so brave, and she kind of got used to it then, do you know what I mean? And then we had to wait. So she done the radiation in August.
When did she get diagnosed? Take your time, take a drink. When did she get diagnosed? Just give me a little time frame. So
so she was diagnosed the 17th of July.
And then she started
she started the radiation literally like 3 weeks later.
Okay.
So we didn't start the chemotherapy then till October. But it wasn't like your traditional chemotherapy that we know, where you lose your hair and you get it through like a port. This was an oral chemotherapy, so she had to take these huge tablets. Like, I mean, I was like, how would I even take them? Do you know what I mean? They were huge. And she'd take them for 5 days of the month, every 4 weeks. And they were like there's a chance that this isn't even going to do anything. Like, not everyone with DIPG gets
say that DIPG. It's just give me the name and what is it?
Yeah, so the brain tumour is DIPG, and it's a malignant brain tumour in the brain stem.
DIPG.
Yeah.
Okay.
So not every child or person that's diagnosed with DIPG gets given this chemotherapy. Aaliyah had a certain mutation that came up in the biopsy that said it may work. So I was like, well, we have nothing to lose. And that's what the doctor said, listen, I'd rather give it a shot. And it had no really side effects other than fatigue or sometimes vomiting. So she took it. I don't know how, but she was just like, okay, let's just do it. And she took it for the 5 nights every 4 weeks. And she did fast, so she couldn't eat for 2 hours, then take it, and she couldn't eat after that. So the best time we figured out was to give it to her at night time and just let her take it at bed and sleep through. And she'd no side effects from it whatsoever. She had a bit of fatigue during that week of taking it, and she'd get a bit of nausea, but no vomiting or anything. So it wasn't like she was even on anything, do you know what I mean? She was just so well. And I remember, like, the team that we had in Crumlin, she had this oncology nurse specialist. Her name was Cherished. She was amazing. I remember her ringing me. It was around Christmas time, I think, and she was like, "Hey, I'm just checking in. How is Aaliyah? Like, we haven't heard that from me. Like, usually parents are ringing me like every day and stuff." And I was like, "She's doing so well. Like, I don't need to be ringing you because nothing's wrong. She's doing so well." And there was nothing wrong with her. There was no like sickness, as I said. She was off that steroid. She was fine. It was like she went back to herself. She was in school every day. She was like, we were doing everything. She was out all the time. We were just trying to cram in everything. And then our 7th birthday came in the January, and we did loads for it. Like, we tried to make it as special as we could, because I knew, I had a feeling like this could be our last. And same with Christmas. But like that, she was so well throughout our diagnosis. And like, I know, like, we prayed for a miracle, but the miracle was that she was so well, because if she hadn't have been well, it would have been so difficult. Like, there was days where she'd be like getting sick and stuff, and them days were really hard, and the days where she was fatigued. But when you look back, I'm like, she was so well. Like, you would have never known. Like, we'd be out and stuff, and if anyone heard she had a brain tumour or anything, they'd be like, God, you'd never know that she had a brain tumour. She looked so fine. She didn't look like a typical child that had childhood cancer, do you know what I mean? Because she didn't lose all that hair. But yeah, she was so well for ages. And then it was this time last year, it was the May, when I figured out that our tumour was starting to grow. All our symptoms were coming back in. It was like been back in July again. It was like, it's our eye, it's the walk and vomit and everything. And the doctor was like, we need to stop the chemo. It's not working anymore. The tumour started to grow back. But the 2 MRIs she had previous, the tumour had shrunk and it was stable, and they were like, everything's going well. Because sometimes radiation doesn't work. There's some kids where they've had radiation, went through all that, and the tumour is still continuing to grow, whereas Aaliyah's was stopped in its tracks and it did shrink. So it was the May last year when they were like, it's starting to grow again, we need to do radiation all again. And I was like, oh no, how am I going to tell her? It's gonna break her heart if we have to go through this again. So we had to tell her. I said, Aaliyah, we need to do treatment again. And she was so upset. I just remember her being like, no, Mummy, I'm not going, I'm not doing it, I don't want to do that again and all. And she was just real upset. She was like, why is this happening to me and stuff? And like, she used to ask me questions and be like, am I going to be sick forever? Is the tumour ever going to go and stuff? And like, as our mum, like, I need to protect her. I need to not let her know that anything's wrong, and no need to worry. Like, but I was like, Aaliyah, I don't know what's going to happen. Like that's why we're doing, instead of saying no or yes, I was like, that's why we're doing the treatment, to try and get better. I was like, sometimes people don't get better for a while. And like, I was able to reference people in like the family that had cancer and let her know, like, they were doing treatment for a good while and then they were fine and stuff. But she hated being sick. It wasn't her at all. She just, like, we'd more good days than bad, thankfully, like, but the days that were bad, she just hated it, and it just broke my heart, because there was nothing I could do. It wasn't like we were fighting against, like, it wasn't like we were fighting against her being cancer free. I knew that was never going to happen. They told me. So I was like, we're just fighting towards trying to keep her stable and keep her symptoms at bay. She's never going to get over this, do you know what I mean? So that was that was just soul destroying for a parent, looking at your child now and she's so sick and there's nothing you can do. That was really hard. Yeah.
And then did it turn around? Like, did you have to go through then with the radiation?
Yeah, so we had to do the radiation again, and like that it was for 14 days again continuously. But she was 7 now, so she was that little bit older. I said, can we please do without sedation, because it's just a lot on her. I was like, I'll tell her, like, she has to lie down, don't worry, we'll prep her and stuff. And they were real hesitant, but we got through it. Like, we went in every single day, and I brought in a speaker for her, and I was like, we're going to play Little Mix. That was like our favourite songs. I was like, we're going to play Little Mix, we're going to blare it every single day. And they said this time, because she's already had radiation on her brain, it's dangerous to have a lot of radiation. So this time it wasn't going to be as much. So the time was shorter that she was in there. So they said every day the time will get shorter. So I was like, oh, Leah, today was 15 minutes. Tomorrow was going to be 14. And every day we were trying to just be like, we'll go for food after, let's go somewhere fun, just trying to make it better than what it was. But at this stage she was back on the steroids. She like had them side effects of mood swings, and she was so fed up at this stage. Like, she did not want to go through with this at all. So every day trying to get her in and no anaesthetic and trying to get her on the table was just really hard. And like, seeing her, they had this mask for her, the protection mask, but they painted it for her all different types of things. They asked her what was her favourite things, and they had butterflies and rainbows and stuff all over it, but like, they had to like clank her into the table, so she can't move at all. And then we had to leave her alone in the room. We had to run out and we watched her on this monitor. They had a like CCT set up, and we were able to press a button and chat to her through it, but I had to watch her every single day on that monitor while she was getting radiation. She looked so frightened and scared, this tiny little thing in the middle of the room, and I was like, she doesn't even have a clue what's going on. Do you know what I mean? So that was devastating. And they said there's a chance that this radiation this time won't do anything. We're just trying to stop it in its tracks, but there's a chance it might not do anything, and we've no more options. So
she's so brave.
Yeah, she really was. Like, she used to just shock the doctors. Like, she used to, like, she was so sassy. Just when she entered the hospital, because she just hated the hospital so much. And she had this, like, the doctors knew, all the nurses knew, they were like, we know she just wants to get in and out. We know she hates her like a child naturally would. So they just were like, hey, Aaliyah, and she was just like, hello, and she was just like so sassy sitting there, and I'd be like, and she was so kind all the time, so I'd be like, she's not usually like this. But they were like, listen, if a child was going through that, you'd be the exact same. Do you know what I mean?
And then when did things start to get worse?
So it was when she had the radiation in May, our symptoms just got kind of worse from then. And it was June and July when our symptoms just got really bad. And I remember it was July and it was really sunny out like that. It was a year later, literally to the day, and she was sleeping a lot. And I remember they told us what to look out for. Like, it's the tumour's progressing. We don't think she's much time left, so look out for these symptoms. And one of them was sleeping a lot, and I was like, she's sleeping a lot more than usual. So I rang up Crumlin, and they said bring her straight in, because when there was anything wrong with the children with cancer, they were brought straight in. You didn't have to wait in like A&E or anything. So we brought her straight in, and I was like, she's a good few more symptoms, like vomiting and the sleeping a lot. And she did mention her head was hurting her, which she never did before. So they said we might just do a CT scan just to check what's going on. So they did the CT scan, and then they said to me, Lauren, we're going to do an MRI. And I was like, oh no. I was like, I don't even want to do the MRI. So went down with her, and she wanted me to go in with her. And I remember she was like, I don't want to do this stupid MRI. She was just so... I just wanted her to be a normal child. I just was like, she should be out playing. She should be out, like, enjoying the sunshine. But here we are in an MRI, and I just sat and cried through that whole MRI. Like, she didn't know, but I was like rubbing her little leg, and I just knew. I was like, the tumour is at a progressing more, and we're just running out of time. And I remember the team kind of ran in real quick, and they were like, okay, you need to get back down to the ward. And I was like, God, what? Like, why is there a big rush? So I remember one of the doctors that was on call was like, we need to come into the boardroom. And I was like, why are they not just telling me, like, out straight here, like the tumour was like growing again? So they sat down, and I just remember looking at everyone's faces, and I was like, oh God, like something is going on here. And she was like, I'm not going to bullshit you. I'm just going to tell you out straight. We're to finding more tumours. And I was like, what? I was like, I knew like that tumour was probably progressing and it was growing, but I wasn't expecting that. That was a really like shock to me. I remember I was just like, what? And I said, can I see the MRI? Because I was so used to looking at them, it was better for me to see it. So I said, where in the brain? And she said, it's at a spreading higher up to the thalamus into a different part of the brain. She said there's 2, but we think there's a lot more. So when I seen the MRI, I could see them. I could see the 2 that started, and I could see the new ones that were starting as well. And she'd only had an MRI 6 weeks beforehand. There was nothing on the screen. That's how fast they grow. And I was just like, I just was in disbelief. I said, I need to ask you straight, how long has she got if the tumours are at the spreading? And she was like, not long, maybe 3 months. And I was just like, 3 months? I was like, what? It's July, so you're telling me like I won't have her here for Christmas or anything? And I was just in floods of tears. I was like, why is this happening to her? Like, how is this? We're in 2023. How is this still happening? How is there no cure? How is there nothing? Like, the treatment for DIPG hasn't changed since the 60s. Like, it's been radiation, go home, make memories, and that's it. There's nothing has changed. There's not enough research or anything, and it's just devastating. So everything just progressed very fastly after that. Thankfully, she wasn't very sick for long, but with DIPG, why it's known as the most deadliest cancer in existence is because when that part of the brain is damaged, you lose all functions of the body. So you lose your swallowing, your talking, your ability to eat, your heart rate is affected, everything. Like, you're completely locked in your body and your mind is still intact, so you can't do anything. You're just stuck there. Like, and that absolutely terrifies me, like, to think that you're just stuck there in the bed and your mind is you know exactly what's going on. And that was just, to see her progress like that was heartbreaking. Like, it was slowly, she was losing her ability to move her arms, then it was her walking, and it was everything else. And she was like, Mommy, why am I like this? She's like, I hate being like this. I don't like it. I just want to be normal again. And I just was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. Like, I remember she said to me 2 weeks before she passed, I'd rather be in heaven, because in heaven nobody's sick. And I remember telling the nurse, and she was like, she was sobbing on the phone when I told her. I was like, this is what I have to deal with. I have to watch my daughter slowly die to this brain tumour. Like, how am I ever going to be normal after this again? How are people going to expect me to function and live when this is what I have to deal with? So it was just heartbreaking. And sometimes the children with DIPG are in that it's called the locked in phase, and that can go on for months. But thankfully with Aaliyah, it wasn't months, it was very short. So I just remember, I was like, I know the time is coming, it's going to be soon. And we're in August now, and I rang up the church in Artane because Aaliyah was supposed to be making her communion next week. And I rang the church and I said, listen, my daughter has a terminal brain tumour and I need to get her communion done. Is there any way we just for family and friends? And he said, of course. And he put the date for the 31st of August. So I was like, I don't care, we just need it for her to happen. Like, she was so excited about her communion and going into second class and stuff. Like, she was such a girly girl, and she's like, I'll get me hair done in Ashley's salon, like that. I get me hair done. Ashley loves her. She was like, I'll do your hair and stuff, and she could pick out the dress. And that was just something that, like, it was such a big thing for her. It was like, I just really wanted her to get her communion. So I had that sorted, and then I knew she was just changing a lot, and I said, we better bring her into the hospital, there's something not right with her. And we brought her in, and her breathing had completely changed. It was very like laboured kind of, and she was just sleeping a lot. And we brought her into Crumlin, and I just thought, like, I knew it was coming soon, but I didn't think it was going to happen this fast. So we brought her into Crumlin, and they said, listen, we'll figure out what's going on. And then they said, listen, we're going to send you home, we'll get her strong, we'll get her well, and we'll send you home with palliative care. And I was like, oh my God. And they said, we need to put a feeding tube in, so she needs an NG tube through her nose, because our ability to swallow and speak is like basically gone, and there's a risk of her choking if she can't swallow. So I was just like, whatever we need to do. And the second he said, we're sending you home palliative care, her breathing just started getting worse. It was like we never had anything to do with the palliative care team because she was so well. We never were introduced to them. We always were supposed to be introduced to them, but she just wouldn't have liked that, and I know she wouldn't have, because she just loved being at home in her own little home, and she wouldn't have wanted like nurses in and stuff. So I knew then, and breathing started going, and I said to the nurse, they're kind of like not saying much to me, and I said like, is it nearly time? Do I need to get my family in? Like, and she just looked at me and said, yeah, I think it would be best if you get our nearest and dearest in. And I rang my mum and I was like, Mum, you all need to like come in. They were already in the car park, I didn't know. They were like, I was like, you need to get in here. So our breathing started going, and they were just doing tests, x-rays, and she was so lifeless on the bed. She was getting blood tests everywhere, all in her feet, all in her legs. They were trying to find veins. She was blood tests all over her arms and stuff just to see what was going on. And the doctor said to me, you have two options. We can put her in the ICU and she'd be on a breathing machine and only one person would be allowed with her, or we could do it the natural route and have her surrounded by loved ones. And that was a no-brainer. I was like, no, let's just do it the natural way, and let's have all our family and stuff around. So that was Tuesday, and we're in Wednesday now, and she was just so tired, but she was still able to. I was like, are you okay? And she was just kind of nodding, and I was like, are you sore anywhere? Are you in any pain or anything? She's like, no. And they didn't want to give her morphine until she like really needed it and stuff, and they started giving like morphine. They said, let's just give it so she can relax, we don't want her like anxious or anything. And I said, just do whatever needs to be done. And everyone came in to see her, and it was night time now, and I was like, oh, we've such a big day, a long day ahead of us tomorrow. Like it's going to be Thursday tomorrow. It's just the thought of just getting through the day was just so hard. I couldn't even sleep. We were just kind of up tossing and turning, and like taking turns sleeping beside her in the bed and stuff. So it came to the morning time, and it was just I didn't like the night time in there because it was so quiet. There was only like one nurse on, and I just liked having loads of doctors and nurses around just in case. And there was just one nurse on, and like she picked up loads during the night, Aaliyah. Like our oxygen and our heart rate was so low, and in the middle of the night the nurse was like, she's just coming right back around, like, and she was like still laughing and joking, like she was still able to like mess and be our little funny self. And I was like, do you know what, we'll probably get home and she'll pass her home, and that's just the way we'll get her home. So the morning came, and the nurses were all turning over their shifts, so it was new nurses coming on. They were all kind of introducing themselves, and I was like, we've a long day ahead of us, Carl. He was like, I'm going to go in for a shower, and I was like, yeah, do, because there's going to be new teams of doctors in. We're going to have to do this all over again. And I lied with her, and I was just chatting to her, and I was like, Leah, you don't even have to answer me, like you just chill out, I'm going to just talk. And I was just telling her how proud I was of her and how amazing she was through our whole diagnosis. And it's like, you were the best daughter I could have ever had. You made me so happy for them 7 years. They were the best 7 years of my life. And I just said everything that I wanted to say to her, that I wanted her to hear. And we played songs, and Carl was like, stop playing songs, wait for me, because she loved music, and we all had like special songs with her, and he was like, wait for me. And I was like, right, okay, after this song I'll pause and I'll wait for you. So he was literally so quick, and he came out, and Aaliyah kind of opened her eyes, and she followed him around the bed, and I said, Daddy's back now, don't worry, the three of us are here, like, we're not going anywhere. And I looked at her, and her whole face changed, and I said, I pulled down like her blanket, and I said, Carl, get the nurse, our breathing's had to change. So the nurse came in, the team of doctors, and my family were sleeping in the family room down the corridor. And I just looked at the nurse, and she just looked at me, and I was like, Aaliyah, can you hear me? Because she was still able to squeeze my hand, so she was listening to me. And I said, Aaliyah, if you can hear Mammy, squeeze my hand. And she didn't. And the nurse came round, and she was the palliative care nurse. She just grabbed me by the shoulders and whispered in my ear and said, Lauren, it's time, just beware. So it was just, I knew then, I just have to, there's nothing else I can do. I'm at doing everything I possibly could for her. I need to just beware while she's going to heaven. So the nurse ran down and got my family, and they came in the room, and I lied with her in the bed, and Carl was like behind me, and he had his hand on her heart, And I was holding her hand, and I had my hand on her head, and I was just rubbing her head, and I was like, it's okay, just go now, you're fine, like, you did everything you could, Leah, just rest now. And it was like I went into a trance. It was like it was just the three of us in the room. There was nobody else around. And I said to her, I don't know how, but Carl said it must have been about 500 times. I just said with every breath, I love you. I love you. I love you, until our heart stopped. And I don't know how long that went on for, but Carl said, I think she's gone now. The doctor needed to confirm, and I was like, I had such a pain in my chest. I said, Carl, I think I'm having a heart attack. I had all these pins, needles, shooting pains down my arm, and I was like, she's going, and there's nothing I can do about it. Like, I'm just lying here, and there's nothing I can do. So she went so peacefully. It was like as if she just went to sleep. There was no, like, they said there could be a struggle. She could be, like, fighting for her life. She just closed her eyes and went to sleep. It was so peaceful. And I was like, it was just so weird. I was like, what? Like, what do we do now? Like, what? I didn't know what to do. I was so confused. I was like, she's still here. Like, what do I do? And the nurse was just like, we're not doing anything yet. You just be with her and stay with her. And I was like, right, okay. And it's kind of a blur to me after that, but I just was hysterical. Like, everything you imagine, like, that to be like, it was, and more. It was absolutely horrific. I just couldn't believe it happened so fast and the way it did, because even the doctor came in and he said, Lauren, I really wasn't expecting that to go that fast. He said, I thought we were going to get her home with palliative care and it was going to be another couple of weeks maybe. And I was like, I felt instant happiness for her, that she wasn't suffering anymore. I was like, her soul is free, like, she is in heaven now. And I just was like, she's not suffering and the pain is over now. Like, it would have been selfish for me to want her still here. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't fair. I just wanted her here because she was my daughter and I loved her so much. Well, it wasn't fair on her. It was just her time to go, and I'm just glad she didn't suffer. That was the main thing for me, because if we had watched her like the way she was in hospital for weeks and months on end, I don't know how I would have got through. Do you know what I mean?
What was the best memories you had of her when she was sick?
Oh, just, she was so funny. Like, she was such a character. Like, she just made everyone laugh. She always loved making everyone laugh, and she'd be real silly, and like, she'd always do like pranks on everybody. And she was just, there was something about Alia. She was just such a light. Do you know what I mean? She radiated happiness. She was so special and so different to any other child I've ever met in my life. She was so kind. She knew, she was a real empath. She felt everything so deeply. Like, I remember one time the teacher said to me in school, the kids were watching a Disney movie. You know, the Disney movies are always real upsetting. And she said, Aaliyah and like one other girl was like so upset. We had to take them out of class and bring them down to a playroom. She was like, she feels everything so deeply. And she's always been like that. But that's what made her so kind. She knew like to be kind to everyone. She loved to make you feel important. And it was just like our little love language. Like, she'd always just go out of her way to make you feel so loved. Do you know what I mean? Like, birthdays, everything. And we both just had such a unique bond with her. Like, if you ask any of my friends, anyone who knew me and Leah, like, we were so close as a mother and daughter. Like, it was like we were, you know, like sisters. Like, that was like what we were, because me and Leah, like, we grew up together. I had her when I was so young, and I was still like, I was only like 18. Do you know what I mean? I was still finding my way, and I grew up with her, and I got to watch her become this beautiful child, and she got to watch me grow as well. So just in our house there was no cancer. Like, when you stepped through our doors, there was no such thing as cancer, and we made every day just so happy. It was just, every day was filled with so much laughter, and we didn't let her know at all that she was sick. Like, I just had to be as positive as I could, and I was like, she's doing so well right now in this minute, so why would I worry about the future when she's fine right now? Like I don't know how I came across your Instagram. Do you know that? I don't know how I came across your Instagram, actually. But it's very like you. Yeah. Very, very like you. Yeah. We both had the same like personality, same. We were two goofballs. Like two of us, like Kelly would say, God, if anybody's seen what we're like behind closed doors, like it was just always just laughs and happiness. It was never, she was just always such a good child. Like you'd never have to tell her how to be. I'd like never have to give out to her or anything. She just was always so good, and I just loved her so much. She was just amazing.
Yeah, I know it's fucking horrific, but and I look at, and when I see you putting the memories up of her, and you seem to have a lovely friend group as well, who all loved her as well, and her smile, her smile was so amazing.
That's like everyone would say, like Aaliyah was the child who always just smiled, like no matter what was going on, she had a smile on her face. All my pictures, my whole 25,000 camera all over there, every single picture is just her smiling. She was always so happy, and that's just the way she always was, and she continued to be like that throughout our diagnosis. I don't know how, but she was always so smiley, and like that everyone who knew her just absolutely loved her, and they were always in awe of her. Like doctors that would meet her and nurses, they would always be like, she's just like, she's a brilliant child, like she's amazing, like she's just,
What day did she die?
She died on the 18th of August 2022. So that was just, it was literally so she battled cancer for 1 year, 1 month and 1 day, and that number 111 has always been in our life, like everywhere, but it's just such significance now. It pops up everywhere. I'm not joking, like you could be somewhere random and something be 111, and I just know it's her. Like we were so big on signs and stuff, and one of the things I asked her when I knew she was going to pass soon was, when I was chatting to her, we loved going to see the sunsets and the sunrises, so we'd like set like a 5 o'clock alarm in the summer, jump up, go down to Aaliyah Beach, see the sunrise, or we'd go up to Hope to see the sunset, and we loved doing that. She loved it. She'd be like, can we go see a sunset? And I'd be like, yeah, it's cloudy today though, we'll figure out a different day. She loved rainbows and she loved butterflies, and I said to her, Aaliyah, as signs, send them 3 things to me. And when she passed, it was just me and her in the room after the nurses they'd set everything up nicely, and it was just me and her, and I said, Aaliyah, send me a sign and let me know you're okay. And there was a knock at the door, and I said, yeah, come in, and it was a nurse, and she said, I just wanted to give you this, and I was like, okay. And it was a little bag with a crystal butterfly in it, and I actually gasped. I was like, I knew that was her just letting me know, Mommy, I'm okay. And she gave one to everyone in the family, and she gave us one to put in the coffin with her and for all of us to keep. So she had one and we all had one, and I knew that was her. And she sends us so many amazing signs. Like people be like, that's a coincidence, and I'm like, no, it's with her.
Yeah, it's her.
There's some of them have no explanation, and you're like, how did that even happen? Like stuff would be happening that wouldn't even make sense, and I'm like, I know that's Aaliyah, because she's amazing. She can do amazing things. You know what I mean?
Tell me what it was like to plan her funeral.
Everything from when she passed to the funeral was just autopilot. It was like I had this idea in my head of what I'd be like. I just thought when Aaliyah passed.
Did you think about that?
Yeah, a lot, yeah. Because part of me didn't want to believe it, but part of me had to prepare for it because I knew the day was going to come. And I'd always think, how am I going to survive without her? She's my whole life. How does someone go on when their loved one passes, especially their child? So the way I envisioned everything like that happening, I would have crumbled. But when I was in it, I just had to get through it. I had to do it for her. I had to make that day special for her, for her send-off. And thankfully, the funeral directors, when we went down, were amazing. Like, I was shaking going in. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And they, like, we were laughing and all in there. Like, we were like, she'd want this, she'd want that. And they made us feel so at ease that I was like, right, they have this, we have this, we're going to do it. I had so many people just helping out that I really needed that support. And we just, I don't know how we got through it, but we did. It was like, even though she was at home with us, she was laid out in our coffin, it just wasn't her. I was like, that's just our shell of our body, but I know our soul is free. Like, even though she was there, like, I was consoling people coming to see her. Like, I barely cried, and I know that sounds so weird, but unless you went through what I went through, I was just in fight or flight mode. I was in autopilot. I was like, I have to get through the day. I just have to. And if I stopped and thought about it, I knew I would have lost my mind. So I had to just keep kind of going. But we had like the most amazing send off ever. It was just so beautiful. And at the end of the day, when my friends were outside, everyone, like some people were outside having a smoke, and they were banging on the window, and they're like, Lauren, you need to get outside. And I was like, I don't want to go outside, what's going on? It was the end of the day, I was just so exhausted, I just wanted to go home. And we went outside and we looked, and there was like a car stopped. There was like people on the street taking pictures, and everyone's like kind of stopped, and I was like, what's going on? I looked up in the sky, and there was this a luminous rainbow, just like we could see, you know, when rainbows start, we could just see it connecting completely. And everyone's like, oh my God, look at the rainbow, like what's going on? Like people taking pictures, everyone's in awe of this. And it wasn't like a typical rainbow where it's like red, orange, green, blue. It was like vibrant pink. Everyone, we were all taking pictures and videos of so many pictures of it, and I was like, that's her letting me know she's fine, like the day is done now, she can rest. Like that's, I just needed to see that. And it was right over where we were. It was just amazing. But yeah, it was just, it's kind of all a blur to me, to be honest, that time. I don't know how we got through it. Like I think back and say, how did we do that? I don't know. I think it was just a supportive family and friends and everyone, and just, we just had to power through.
And how do you and Carl, like, it's not, because you don't move on, it's, but how do you keep going every day?
It's hard because every day is a struggle. Like you'd see me one day and like I could be done up to the nines, like, and people will think, oh, she's doing well, she's moved on, but it's not. I'll never get over this. I'm gonna have to carry this for the rest of my life, and I'm still in a bit of denial. Like I'm like, my daughter's never coming back. There's part of me that still passes by her bedroom door. I open it, and for a split second I think, what if this was all just a nightmare and she might be in her bed, and I'll just open the door and I'll look at all her stuff, everything's just exactly as it was, and I'm like, she's not there. It's very difficult, and the first few months is just you in survival mode, like going on walks. I thought like we'd be crumbled, just not being able to get out of bed, but you have to get, the day doesn't stop, like the time doesn't stop for anybody. Everyone goes back to work, everyone gets on with things, and you're just like, what am I going to do to survive today? Like you're constantly on walks, you're just doing anything to try and fill the day. But when I hit the 6 month mark, it was when she was supposed to be turning 8, and that really, like, that was really, really hard for me. That's when it sunk in that she's not here anymore and she's not coming back. She's at the missing her 8th birthday. She's missing, it's supposed to be our communion next week. She's missing everything that's supposed to be coming. And my anxiety got really, really bad. Like, I couldn't even leave the house. It was really bad. And then I went to the GP and I said, my anxiety is really bad, I don't know what to do. And he prescribed me anti-anxiety tablets. I'd never taken it like that before, and I was real hesitant. I was like, and what will I feel like on this? And he said, you'll feel fine, you won't feel any difference. And I had a severe allergic reaction to them. I was the 1 in 100,000 person. You know when you see it's like 1 in 1,000. I was the 1 in 100,000 person, and I had a severe reaction. I ended up in A&E, and that set me back. I was there for a couple of days. I was really bad. They said, like, they had me on heart monitors, everything. Like, there was a chance I could have a heart attack. They said, you can never, ever take these again in your life. When you're telling the doctor, we know when they ask if you have any allergies, I'm allergic to penicillin, and now I have to say these tablets. So I thought, these are going to help me get through this bridge of anxiety. And then I was like, what am I supposed to do if I can't take them? So I was really stuck for a while. I couldn't even leave the house. Even going for a walk, I was in panic mode. I don't know what was wrong. But I went to therapy, and thankfully the man who I went to, he does cognitive therapy, and it changed my life. Like, I thought I was going to be stuck like that forever, and there was days where, like, I was so exhausted from just dealing with my mind and the overthinking and everything. I was like, how am I going to get through this? Like, the days were so dark, there was no light. Like, I was like, I've nothing to look forward to. My daughter's not here. Like, what's the point? You know what I mean? And then when I went to him, it just flipped everything. I was like, I can get through this, and it's not my time to go yet. Everyone has a journey in life, and Aaliyah's unfortunately was short. It's not my time to go yet. I've more to do. I have to honour her. It's not fair that her life was taken away from her so young, and I'm still here. I need to appreciate life as hard as it is. I need to be grateful for everything. Like, when I have a cup of tea, I'm like, I'm so grateful that I'm I'm here, I'm alive, I'm able to drink this, I should be appreciative of everything. So that's kind of me outlook now.
That's hard.
Yeah,
that's hard
to
do that. To do that,
because like I'm only 26. I've been through so much. It's a constant battle every single day. Like, and to think, like, I should be grateful for everything, but my daughter's not here. It's very hard. Like, do you know what I mean?
It'll be so hard for yourself with that. And I just had to hit, like, you don't know how she was so brave. Look at yourself. Look at yourself. That's how she was so brave, because you were our ma. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think sometimes why I didn't want to ask you was because I knew that we, you know, and I don't ever like to upset.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And do you know what? It's not like some people think I won't mention her because I don't want to upset her, but you'll never upset me by mentioning my daughter. Yeah. Like, she's the happiest part of my life. You mentioning her just lets me know that you remember her. You're intrigued by her story. You want to hear about her, and I'll always be happy to talk about her. She's the happiest part of my life. I wouldn't be who I am today without her. Like, she made me a mum, and that was the best thing she could have did. My favourite part of me is when I was a mum. When I was Aaliyah's mum, that was my happiest time. And I know I'll always be her mum, but it's just hard because I loved being her mum. I loved being a mum, and I don't have that anymore. And I know the one thing everyone says to me that gets me is, you say young you can have more kids. Oh. And I'm like, if they only knew when they say that to me, what goes through my head? Like, when I hear that, what goes through my head is, what if we have another child and it happens again? What if we have another child and that child gets cancer or that child gets sick? There's so much that comes with it. It's not as easy as have another one. A child will never replace Aaliyah, and it might not ever fix that gap. Like, what happened to her was traumatic. Do you know what I mean? It was horrendous. And when I go to that man for therapy, he said to me, and I didn't even realise, he said, do you know what you have right now? And I said, what? And he said, you have extreme PTSD. And it was like everything just clicked in my head. I didn't even know that was a thing that I could have. And I had so many triggers when I went out, like, to the supermarket or something, but I didn't know what them triggers were, and they'd send me into, I was having multiple panic attacks a day. I couldn't go to the shops because everything reminded me of her. Like, we went to B&Q one of the days, we were getting grass seeds for the grave, and there was a man beside us on a forklift. Like, you'd never think this would happen to you, like, especially walking into B&Q. Him on the forklift, the noise of it beeping brought me back to the hospital machines, of the hospital machine monitor beeping, and everything just around me didn't feel real. It was like I was having such anxiety and this panic attack that everything around me felt warped, and I was like, I have to get out of here. And it wasn't until he explained that to me, he's like, you have all these triggers. I didn't even know they were a thing. Imagine, like, what you said, like PTSD. Yeah.
What you went through, like, even looking at your child, as I said, on a CCTV, being chained as such, like, that is the biggest trauma that any parent can face.
I know. And it's just because I think I had no choice. I had to be in it. I didn't. Yeah. It just becomes so normal that you don't realise how big it is. And, like, it wasn't until I was talking about Aaliyah's story to, like, some people, like, friends and stuff, when I was saying it out loud and I was seeing their reaction, like, seeing them upset, I was like, oh, I'm not crying, because I had to live it many times and I relive it in my head every day. I've just gotten so used to it that when other people hear it, it's shocking, and I'm kind of shocked by their reaction then, because I'm like, God, this isn't like a normal thing to happen. Even though it was my normality, that should have never happened. Do you know what I mean?
Never. I'm so glad you're doing that. I can never say that word.
Cognitive therapy.
I can never say it. The cognitive therapy. I'm so glad you're doing that.
It's amazing. Like, he did this therapy called rapid eye movement therapy. And I never heard of it before, but do you ever look at your Fitbit and it's like REM? It's rapid eye movement, and that's when your brain processes things. So he done this rapid eye movement therapy on me, and I swear to God, it changed me. Like, he says certain sentences, and he said, I'm planting bits of seeds in your brain that it's going to process it and it's going to believe it. So he'd say, I am safe, Aaliyah is safe in heaven. There's no need to worry anymore, because I didn't realise all my anxiety and the PTSD was me worrying about her not being by my side anymore and me not being able to know what's going on. So he really helped me. Like, if I hadn't went to him, I don't know like, I'd still be probably locked in my house, not leaving, afraid to leave. Like, and that's like, it just opened your eyes, because on Instagram I could have a story of like me out having a drink or something, but you didn't see like the 10 panic attacks I had to get out of the house. You didn't see like the crying I did that day. And that's why, like, I think it's so important people try not, I know we judge a lot, but try your best not to. You don't know what that person went through. Yeah. You don't know what, like, I'd be in a coffee shop and I'd be just thinking, God, these people in the queue don't know what they don't know what I've been through. They haven't a clue what's going on. It's just, yeah, it's bad.
And that is the thing that, you know, about how life moves on.
Oh God, yeah. Like that one day for the funeral, everyone gets like off work, and the next day everyone like goes back, and time just goes on, and everyone around you is like not moving on, but everyone's getting on with their life, because it stopped for us, but it doesn't stop for everyone else, and everything just goes back to normality, and people just think it goes on. For me, I'm still stuck in that time. Do you know what I mean? Like, every day I just live my life in the past. All I have is these memories, and that's all I relive, like, every day. Do you know what I mean? It's hard to think of moving on and going forward, but it's so hard when everyone else is going forward, and you're like, how are they going away on holiday when my daughter just died? Do you know what I mean? It's mad.
Yeah, but therapy is the only, not the only thing, because like the strength you have in you, you always have to remember that, because you have some strength. But like, it is, you know, it is. How's Carl?
Yeah, it's tough. See, it's tough. We're both dealing with the same grief, but it's different for everybody, and that's even for like mums and dads. Like, I know he puts on a brave face just for me. Do you know what I mean? He still feels like he needs to hold us all together, and he does try to bottle everything in, but he is great at like communicating. We'll sit here and we'll talk about everything. Carl's such a great support. I don't know what I would have done without him. Like, he held me together on days where I was falling apart, you know what I mean? And it's just so tough for both of us. It's hard, because my view was him and her. Do you know what I mean? Like, I used to love watching them together, and them like bullying me and all. Like, they'd always gang up on me and like do pranks on me and mess. But I used to just love it, and it's just so hard seeing him so empty. Do you know what I mean? He's trying his best to get through work and stuff and put on that brave face, but we're just so broken. Do you know? There's no healing it. It's just so hard. But he's doing the best that he can for the both of us, and we both know it's okay to have like an off day. Do you know what I mean? We both try so much to be strong, but I learned then there's no point in trying to be strong and brave a face. Like, let people know you're upset. Like, if someone asks me how I am now, I don't go, I'm okay, I'm having a fine day. I'm like, oh, I'm shit. Like, life is shit. Having an awful day, I'm not having a great week. And I just let them know now, because there's no point in sugarcoating it. There's nothing fine about what happened and my grief. Do you know what I mean? And just have to be open and honest kind of with it.
You have to process it.
Exactly, yeah.
And as you said, you're broken, and you know, there's no point of me, or I'm not an expert or anything like that, but like, there's no point in me saying, but it's just like, the therapy will help you along the way. Carl will help you along the way. You'll help him along the way. But there's nothing.
No.
But you just have to sit, like, you can't sit in that darkness either.
I know, because I've been to that darkness, and it's scary. Like, it's like, I'm like, I understand people now in other situations when they get to this dark place, how horrible it is, and how people would think there's no way out. Do you know what I mean? Until I found therapy, and I was like, oh my God, I had nothing to lose going here, and I've gained so much. I'm just so glad that I was able to go for it, because some days I was so exhausted that you're like, I don't have the energy. Like, your social battery is just so small. Do you know what I mean? Like, he said to me, you're running on, you, like, I would be like, I'm so exhausted all the time, like, how? And he said, you're literally using all of your energy just to survive the day. And I didn't, when he said that, I was like, wow, I never even thought of it like that. With everything he says, I'm like, what? Let me write that down. What is going on?
Yeah.
But everything says just makes so much sense, and it just has helped me a lot with my grief, because I've never had to deal with anything like this. I didn't realize what grief even was like. Obviously, I know, like, you miss the person, but like you were saying, you go back to work and you get on with life, no matter how it kind of is. And I just never knew it was going to be this hard. I knew I'd miss it, and I knew that was going to be hard, but having to unlearn everything that you know, like unlearn being a mum, like every day going to the school, just my everyday things, I don't do them anymore. And I had to, it's like I lost myself. I was like, I used to be Aaliyah's mum, and she used to come first for absolutely everything I did, and now I have to learn to put me first. Like, it was so weird that I had her depending on me the whole time, and then I had to put me first. I wasn't used to it, like, do you know what I mean? So yeah, that was just hard.
And May, the month of May, is brain. Is it brain or childhood brain?
No, it's Brain Tumour Awareness Month. So for anyone who's affected by brain tumours, because I didn't know, and like, you wouldn't notice unless you were affected by childhood cancer up front. Like, I always just presumed that children are put first for everything, but when it comes to cancer, children are put last. They get less than 4% of government funding for cancer research, and that's all around the globe. Like, that's America, that's everywhere, because it's harder to do clinical trials on children, and it's easier to do them on adults, and there's not much money in it, so they just focus everything on adults. Like the chemotherapies, there's only a handful of chemotherapies approved for children, and they're all adults. They were all designed for adults, and they just lower the dose and give them to children and hope for the best. And it makes no sense to me. And brain tumours are less than 2% funded, because it's such a difficult organ of the body to try and cure and everything, because the brain deals with everything. If you do one wrong move, that's it. You're either brain dead or the functions of the body are ruined. So it's so hard. Like, the treatment hasn't changed in, like I was saying earlier, years and years, because it's so difficult to treat the brain. But there's a lot more been done now, I think, because see, with like social media and stuff, like back in the day we didn't have the internet, we didn't have social media, but because the platforms are so big now and people are able to get their voices heard, there's a lot more been done now than there was a long time ago. So I'm just hoping that research, like, Aaliyah's not going to be the last person diagnosed with this. Like, unfortunately, it breaks my heart to even think there's going to be many, many more children in the years coming diagnosed with this and other types of cancers, and it's just going to be the same thing. Radiation, make memories, go home, nothing we can do. And that's, I don't know how any doctor could just sit there time and time again, year after year, and say them lines, say them words, like, do you know what I mean? It's just shocking. So yeah, May is Brain Tumour Awareness Month, and I was so happy you asked me to do this, because in this month I'm like, to honour Alia, I need to make a difference somehow. I don't know how yet. It's early days, but I need to make a difference in research, especially for children, because we're the voices for children. They can't speak up. It has to be us to do it. Do you know what I mean?
There's another girl on Instagram, Jenny Ford.
Yeah,
Jenny and lovely Marley.
Jenny and Marley, I do talk to Jenny. Aaliyah and Marley are both in Oscar's Kids Club. That's how I became to know loads of the mums. And she's gorgeous. Yeah,
and I love watching her little follow-ups, and the inner city guys, the head Jen.
Yeah.
Jennifer Faye, they did the running for her, and she did all that, and it's just great, and it's great to see her, you know, thriving, which is amazing. And
that makes me so happy when Jenny puts up pictures, and I'm like, there's a child that's what all children need to get, like, after treatment and diagnosis. Like, she's always so happy in all her little pictures as well, and like, that's what a child should be. There should be treatments and stuff, you know.
Yeah, Lauren, my heart just is broke for you. It totally is.
How are we going to sleep tonight?
I know, and you know, I knew, and then the news today about that poor homeless guy as well. Like, and I came home and I started scrubbing the gaff, and Paul was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I need this environment to be the right environment to have this conversation." Because I knew it was going to be so tough, because I have been following you, and I love your updates.
Thanks.
And don't ever stop there, because I love seeing those memories, and I love seeing all of that. And I don't know whether you still believe in God, don't believe in God, but
oh no, I do. Honestly, I do. I think that's the only thing that kind of helped me as well, is like my strong belief. I know Aaliyah's in heaven. I know she's happy. I know I'll be reunited with her again one day. And I do, like, even though this horrible thing did happen to me, I know some people turn away from God and they're like, why did he do this? Why did God make this happen to us? But that's just the cards we were dealt, and there's nothing I can do about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I pray for you.
Thanks
I pray
so
for
much. I
you
appreciate it.
for one day at that.
Yeah.
I don't, like, it's not even because, like, you don't, it just gets, I don't know, it doesn't get easy. I don't know.
What most people say to me is, grief never goes away, but you just get stronger and you incorporate it in your life. And that's what I'm kind of learning as well. Like, I can't push my grief aside. I need to just sit in it.
Yeah.
So I sit in it and I cry my eyes out, and then I dust myself off, and I'm like, right, I have to get on with the day now. Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
You're so brave, as I said to you, and exactly where Aaliyah got it from, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lauren.
Thanks so much. Thank you.